The Young and the Restless spoilers. Matt kidnaps Dominic, uses Victor's grandson for revenge. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal that Abby Newman, Melissa Ordway, and Devin Winters, Brighton James, could face their worst nightmare when Matt Clark, Roger Howarth, decides to get Victor Newman's, Eric Braeden, attention by kidnapping his grandson, Dominic Newman Abbott Winters Chancellors, Rain and Riverware. Could this be part of Abby and Devin's marriage issues? Someone close to Devin Winters ends up in danger. James revealed a while ago that someone in his family will end up in danger. Obviously, it seems like Victor may be involved since it is supposed to cause issues in his marriage. If Dominic is abducted, it could certainly cause major problems. Devin is likely to blame Victor for the child's abduction, causing huge problems with Abby if her father is responsible for this. Devin may never forgive him. Abby may misunderstand and ultimately figure out that Victor had been the one to set of Matt when he used the AI program on his company. After all, Victor used to this find Noah Newman, Lucas Adams, who had already escaped from Matt and was on his way out of town. All Victor did was manage to distract him. Now Matt is out to get Victor, no matter what it takes. Abby Winters is the least protected child. Honestly, Abby is the equivalent of the lost Newman child. Abby is never involved in the family dramas and would be the least expected person to be hurt by anyone who was after Victor. This could make it very easy for Matt to get his hands on Dominic and whisk him out of the house before anyone was none the wiser. Any of Victor's relatives would be a target no matter what, but Dominic would be the least considered relative to be targeted. Victor is far too busy protecting Noah right now and isn't the least bit worried about the lesser-known family members. Has Victor made his grandson the perfect target for Matt? Dominic Newman Abbott Winters Chancellor is rarely mentioned. Dominic is hardly ever mentioned unless it is around a holiday or something. However, his recital came up in conversation with his aunt. Could Matt sneak into the recital and make off with him before anyone knows about it? Perhaps their first clue is Dominic missing his call onto the stage for his performance. Just imagine Victor receiving a text with Dominic's photo or a message about his kidnapping. Will the family manage to save Dominic from Matt before he decided to hurt him? Nothing can be overlooked when it comes to Matt and his revenge on Victor. Will Dominic be Matt's way of getting his hands on Noah once again? Today's shocking news of the Young and the Restless spoilers. Darkest betrayal yet. Matt Clark kidnaps Dominic using Victor's grandson for ultimate revenge. Genoa City is about to be rocked to its core by a plot so insidious, so cruel, that it will redefine the limits of villainy on the Young and the Restless. The return of the decades-old menace, Matt Clark, Roger Howarth, has been a ticking time bomb, and according to our deepest insider sources, that bomb is about to explode, targeting the one person Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, cannot protect, his vulnerable great-grandson, Dominic Newman Abbott Winters Chancellor. This is not just a threat. This is the Newmans' worst nightmare realized. Matt Clark, the man who once terrorized Sharon Case, and Nick, Josh O'Morrow, and later faked his own death to frame his rival, has returned, and Victor's recent financial takedown of Matt has only amplified his thirst for vengeance. The mustache is about to learn that when you deal with the devil, he doesn't just come for your money, he comes for your blood. Kitchen knife the seeds of vengeance. Why Dominic? Matt Clark, operating for a time under the alias Mitch Bacall, has been meticulously plotting his return to power since Victor Newman decimated his shadowy financial empire. Victor's act, while protecting his son Nick and grandson Noah, stripped Matt of his fortune, his control over his LA club, the Shadow Room, and his life with his wife Sienna. For a sociopath like Matt, this loss is not merely an inconvenience. It's a personal annihilation demanding a biblical retribution. The Newman shield, too strong to breach. Matt's original enemies, Nick, Sharon, and Noah, are all well guarded, keenly aware of his dangerous nature. However, Matt is not a fool. He knows a direct attack on the Newman Ranch is suicide, and targeting Nick's immediate family, Sharon and Noah, is a path Victor will anticipate. Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, a primary target, But Nikki is the great Victor Newman's wife, constantly surrounded by security or within the fortress of the ranch. Kidnapping her is high risk, low percentage. Victoria, Amelia Heinley, and Adam, Mark Grossman, they're Victor's children, but Matt's connection to them is tenuous. Their power plays and corporate drama make them less emotionally potent as leverage. The flaw in the fortress, Dominic. Dominic, the son of Abby Newman, Melissa Ordway, and Devin Hamilton, Brighton James, is the perfect, devastatingly effective target. Direct Newman bloodline. Dominic is Victor's beloved grandson, a symbol of the future. The emotional hold he has over Victor, Abby, and Devin is unparalleled. Less guarded. Dominic does not live on the highly protected Newman Ranch. He spends his time at the Chancellor Mansion or with Devin, places where security is present, but less absolute than Victor's domain. The emotional fault line. Dominic's kidnapping won't just crush Victor. It will utterly shatter Abby and Devin's fragile marriage, providing Matt with secondary, delicious collateral damage. Devin will inevitably blame Victor for riling up a dangerous lunatic and putting his child at risk. The interfamily conflict alone is a victory for Matt. This isn't about money. This is about emotional pain. Matt wants Victor to feel the same sense of ruin, powerlessness, and despair that he now experiences. And stealing a child, a Chancellor, an Abbott, a Winters, and a Newman is the only way to achieve that ultimate, agonizing revenge. The plot unfurls, a villain's masterstroke. The spoiler suggests Matt will execute his plan during Dominic's upcoming recital. This location provides the cover of a crowded, public event, where faces are focused on the stage and security protocols are momentarily relaxed. Act 1. The recital distraction. The Newman and Winters families gather at the Grand Phoenix Ballroom, which has been temporarily converted for a children's event. Abby and Devin are beaming with pride. Victor and Nikki sit front row, a rare, softer moment for the mustache. The tension is masked by a sense of familial warmth. The setup. Matt, disguised as a venue worker or a parent of another child, has been studying the security layout for days. His accomplice, a dirty detective or one of his old LA club contacts, creates a diversion. Hypothetical twist. A small, controlled electrical fire or a panic-inducing chemical spill in a back hallway forces an emergency evacuation of the performer's waiting area. Act 2. The swift snatch. Amidst the chaos, as Abby is distracted tending to a flustered Dominic, Matt makes his move. Dominic, a small child, is easily scooped up. The child, perhaps offered a favorite toy or candy, is initially compliant, not realizing the danger. The escape. Matt uses the confusion of the partial evacuation. He exits through a side service door, melting into the city streets. By the time Abby or Devin realize Dominic is missing, the window for an easy recovery is gone. Act 3. The horrifying discovery. The recital ends in pandemonium. Abby's immediate panic is palpable. Victor's rage is a cold, terrifying silence. Security footage quickly confirms the worst. A blurry image of a man carrying a child, later identified as the newly returned villain, Matt Clark. The fallout, Genoa City in crisis. Dominic's kidnapping is not just a personal tragedy. It becomes a city-wide crisis. The repercussions reverberate through every corner of Genoa City. Victor's unbearable powerlessness. For Victor, the kidnapping is a public castration of his power. He is used to buying silence, controlling markets, and crushing rivals. He cannot buy back his grandson's freedom without giving Matt exactly what he wants. Total victory. The war room. The Newman Ranch becomes a frantic command center. Victor is seen in a rare moment of desperation, bellowing orders, tearing through his fortune to hire every private security team and ex-CIA operative. The ultimate consequence. Matt's first communication. A chilling video message of a sleeping Dominic, completely unharmed but out of reach, comes with a demand. Victor must publicly dissolve Newman Enterprises and sign over its assets to a trust controlled by Matt, or Dominic dies. Devin and Abby's implosion. The stress tears Devin and Abby apart instantly. Devin's accusation, "This is your father's fault, Abby. If Victor hadn't gone after this lunatic for Nick, our son would be safe. My son is now a pawn in Victor Newman's sick game." Abby's defense, "Don't you dare! Matt is a psychopath. My father is trying to fix this." The unraveling. The mutual blame escalates. Devin leans on his family, Lily, Nate, while Abby clings to hers, Victor, Nikki. The shared trauma, instead of uniting them, drives a permanent wedge between them, giving Matt another layer of satisfaction. The Nick/Sharon connection. Nick and Sharon, Matt's original victims, are paralyzed by guilt. They know their past is the reason for Dominic's current danger. Nick's hunt. Nick goes rogue, abandoning the corporate war room to hunt Matt down himself. He feels personally responsible for the new wave of terror Matt is unleashing. The rivalry between Nick and Matt, which has spanned decades, is about to reach a violent, deadly climax. Sharon's trauma. Sharon relives the horrors Matt inflicted on her decades ago. The old wounds reopen, triggering a severe emotional breakdown. She desperately pleads with Matt, trying to appeal to the non-existent humanity of the man who once destroyed her life. The cliffhanger, a race against time. As the pressure mounts, the police, led by Chance Connor Floyd if he were still on the force, or another detective, follow a dead-end lead. Matt is smart. He knows how to evade a city looking for him. The new clue. It is Noah Newman, who finally cracks the case. Having been associated with Matt in Los Angeles, he recalls a subtle detail, an obscure safe house or property Matt mentioned offhand as a perfect hiding place should his life as Mitch ever fall apart. The final showdown. Nick and Victor, armed with Noah's information, converge on a dilapidated, abandoned location just outside Genoa City, a fittingly desolate setting for a final confrontation. The scene is tense. Matt holds Dominic, using the child as a shield, his finger hovering over a detonator or a weapon. Victor, for the first time in memory, is willing to sacrifice everything, his company, his reputation, for the safety of his family. He stares down the villain who has dared to touch his blood. Nick bursts in, fueled by a lifetime of hatred and the need to protect the next generation. The invisible crisis. Why some children become the least protected. The deeply troubling phrase, "the least protected child," is not a headline. It is a profound indictment of a failing system. When a child or young adolescent, like the individual whose story has been discussed across online platforms, endures years of escalating violence and abuse without adequate intervention, it reveals a breakdown in the very institutions designed to keep them safe: family, schools, community, and child protective services, CPS. This failure represents a complex web of missed cues, jurisdictional gaps, and the chilling silence that often surrounds intimate partner violence, especially when the victim is a minor. The critical failure of early intervention, ages 13 to 16. One of the most recurring and heartbreaking aspects of cases involving young victims is the beginning of an abusive relationship during the early teenage years. The role of family and guardians. For a minor, particularly one as young as 13, the primary line of defense is the parental or guardian unit. The search results highlight a painful question that often arises in these situations. Where were the parents? Underestimation of danger. Parents may tragically underestimate the severity of a teenage relationship, dismissing controlling behaviors or emotional manipulation as puppy love or typical teenage drama, rather than recognizing the textbook signs of future domestic violence. Fear of alienation. In some instances, parents may fear pushing their child away entirely, especially if the child is already rebellious or strongly attached to the abuser. This fear can lead to a hesitance to enforce strict boundaries or involve law enforcement until the situation is catastrophic. Abuse as a family secret. In certain circumstances, the domestic violence occurring outside the home mirrors dysfunction within the family structure itself, making parents less equipped or willing to intervene. perhaps due to their own history of trauma or an inability to recognize the severity of the danger. The school's blind spot. Teachers, counselors, and school administrators often hold a privileged position as mandated reporters. They may be the only adults outside the family who regularly see the child and observe physical or behavioral changes. Visible trauma versus hidden abuse. While bruises may be noticed, emotional and psychological abuse is often invisible. A child who is constantly on the phone, distracted, anxious, or withdrawn may be dealing with extreme control and manipulation, but the school system may only respond to academic failure or obvious physical signs. The mandated reporter dilemma. Staff are often overburdened and lack specific training to distinguish between typical teenage turbulence and pathological, high-risk abuse. The process of reporting to CPS is daunting, and many teachers fear the repercussions of an investigation that may ultimately return the child to the same danger. 2. Systemic gaps in child protective services, CPS, and law enforcement. The ultimate societal protection for a child is the robust and responsive intervention of state agencies. When a child is deemed least protected, it is often because these official channels have proven ineffective. The CPS jurisdictional problem. CPS agencies are often focused on parental neglect and direct abuse by a guardian. When the abuser is a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a person outside the immediate household, the legal mandate can become convoluted. Focus on parental fitness. The investigation often revolves around the parent's failure to protect, rather than directly removing the abuser, which can further fracture the child-parent relationship and make the child less likely to cooperate. Temporary shelter, not permanent safety. If a child is removed, the solution is often short-term foster care, which can feel like another trauma, rather than a permanent, supported plan to legally separate the abuser from the minor and prosecute the crime. The lack of safe, long-term options can tragically incentivize a victim to return to the familiar danger of the abuser rather than face the unfamiliar danger of the system. The law enforcement challenge with minors. For a minor involved in an abusive relationship, law enforcement interaction is fraught with challenges. Relationship versus crime. Police officers responding to domestic disturbance calls involving minors often face a blurred line. Is this a breakup dispute, or is it a statutory crime, e.g., sexual assault, kidnapping, physical assault committed against a child? Victim reticence. Abusers often instill fear and dependency, making the young victim terrified to press charges or even give a truthful account. When the victim recants or fails to cooperate, cases often stall, leaving the impression that nothing can be done. The age of consent/maturity paradox. The legal system is often ill-equipped to handle situations where a minor, despite their developmental age, appears to have willingly entered the relationship. This legal gray area allows sophisticated abusers to exploit vulnerabilities, making it difficult for prosecutors to secure convictions that reflect the crime against a child. 3. The long-term fallout, a lifetime of trauma. The label least protected child does not end when the victim reaches the age of 18. The trauma inflicted during those formative years shapes their entire adult life. Cycle of violence. Victims are statistically more likely to enter future abusive relationships, as the pattern of trauma and volatility has been normalized in their mind. They may struggle with establishing healthy boundaries and recognizing the red flags of a controlling partner. Health and mental health crises. The psychological damage manifests as PTSD, chronic anxiety, depression, and higher rates of substance abuse. The emotional toll often requires intensive, long-term therapeutic intervention, which is frequently inaccessible due to financial or geographical barriers. The cost of advocacy. As seen in the public discussions, many survivors become advocates, using their story to warn others. While courageous, this act of advocacy is also a constant re-exposure to trauma, a necessary but painful undertaking to fill the gap left by the systems that failed them. Conclusion. A call for radical reevaluation. The shocking truth behind a case like that of Abby Winters is not the news of the past, but the persistent reality that countless other children are still in the line of fire today. The true headline is Systemic Failure, a national crisis of unprotected children. To move beyond the sensational and into the solution, a radical reevaluation of child safety protocols is required. Mandatory advanced training. Implementing mandatory specialized training for all mandated reporters, teachers, coaches, healthcare workers on the nuanced signs of teen dating violence and coercion. Holistic, victim-centered services. Creating specialized domestic violence units within CPS and law enforcement that are solely focused on protecting the minor from the abuser, regardless of the parent's involvement, and providing comprehensive, long-term safety planning. Community accountability. Shifting the conversation from why did the child stay to why did the community allow this predator to operate for so long? The Young and the Restless preview week of December 15th. Matt's slick move, Sally's truth, Jack's loss. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal a preview clip has been released for the week of December 15th, 2025. It shows Matt Clark, Roger Howarth, issuing an order. Meanwhile, Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope, gives a speech. Plus, Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, experiences a loss. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the CBS soap opera, Matt Clark's slick move. Let's start off with Matt, who is already back in Genoa City. Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, set some traps so they will be alerted if Matt arrives in town. However, it seems Matt is too smart to check in under his own name. Then, the preview clip shows Matt meeting with Detective Annie Stewart, Catherine Kresge. The woman tells Matt that Noah Newman, Lucas Adams, has Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun, stashed in a hotel suite at the athletic club. However, fans know that Nick set it up to make it look that way. However, Matt orders Annie that he doesn't care how hard it is. She is supposed to have taken care of Sienna. Jack Abbott's loss. At the Abbott Communications launch party, Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope, gives a speech as everyone listens. While the redhead is talking about truth in reporting, Jack looks at his phone. The man says WTH, which immediately gets the attention of Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters. Victor Newman, Eric Braden, has decided to strike at Jabot. However, I thought taking the company offline was supposed to prevent that? Lily Winters, change of heart. The Young and the Restless spoilers for the week of December 15th reveal that the preview clip also features Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, and Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn. The man invited Lily to come with him to the launch party. While she eventually agreed, Lily made it clear that Kane wasn't to get false hope from this date. However, it seems that Lily won't be able to keep her own promise. The two are seen gazing into each other's eyes with big smiles on their faces. Phyllis Summers Eiffel. At the launch party, Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, walks in with Tessa Porter, Kate Fairbanks, and Daniel Romalotti, Jr., Michael Graziade. They stare at Kane and Lily. One character says, "See, I told you this party would be fun." However, another says, "I think it's a little early to label it." Phyllis is determined to get revenge on both Kane and Lily. So what will she do next? Today's shocking news. The Young and the Restless preview week of December 15th. Corporate warfare, vengeful returns, and crushing defeat. Genoa City explodes. The lights are up on Genoa City, but the festive cheer of December is about to be utterly extinguished by a trifecta of escalating crises. This week, the lines between corporate espionage and personal vendetta blur into a single, devastating tidal wave. Matt Clark, a ghost from Sharon's past, returns with a deadly agenda. Sally Spectra faces the public fallout of an old enemy's scorched earth tactics, and Jack Abbott suffers a loss so profound it threatens to break the already fragile foundations of Jabot. This isn't just a week of drama. It's a week that will irrevocably change the power structure of Genoa City and shatter the lives of its most prominent families. Matt's slick, sinister move, a ghost with a vengeance. The past is never truly buried in Genoa City, and for Nick and Sharon Newman, that truth returns with a chilling, tangible threat this week. The reemergence of Matt Clark, also known as Mitch Bacall. His previous reign of terror was enough to traumatize Sharon for life, and his return promises a sinister, meticulous plan of vengeance that targets the Newman family through their most vulnerable links. The hunter becomes the target. Matt's initial re-entry into Genoa City is cloaked in the guise of his new persona, but his intentions are pure malice. He wastes no time in re-establishing contact with his loyal and deeply compromised accomplice, former Detective Annie Stewart. Annie delivers the intel. Sienna Bacall, the young woman Matt is using as leverage and a proxy for his sinister games, is supposedly tucked away in a suite at the Genoa City Athletic Club, hidden by Noah Newman. However, Matt Clark is far too cunning for a simple decoy. The spoiler video features a chilling conversation where Matt issues a brutal, non-negotiable directive to Annie. I don't give a damn if it's difficult. I need you to take care of Sienna. This isn't a simple threat. It's a kill order disguised as a cleanup. The deadly plot. Is Sienna truly at the GCAC, or is Matt merely testing the Newman family's defenses? The very idea that he has a mole, Annie, inside the police or within the Newmans' immediate periphery is horrifying. The week will build to a terrifying crescendo as Nick steps fully into hero mode, determined to protect Sharon and Sienna at any cost. Nick and Matt, the dangerous confrontation. By the end of the week, the rivalry between Nick and Matt escalates from a cold cat-and-mouse game to a dangerous, physical confrontation. Nick's resolve to guard his family against this predator will lead him to put himself directly in harm's way. The Newmans will have to remain on high alert as Matt's stunning strategies threaten to dismantle their lives piece by piece. Sharon, haunted by her history with this villain, is poised to be pushed to the brink as Nick's actions become increasingly reckless. This storyline is set to be the week's most terrifying, as Matt Clark is not playing a business game. He is playing for blood, and he is ready to claim his first victim. Sally's truth and Billy's disaster, the launch party crash. The high-flying aspirations of Sally Spectra and Billy Abbott are about to come crashing down with a deafening thud. Their new venture, Abbott Communications, is meant to be a fresh start, a legitimate, truth-focused media company symbolized by their stylish, retro-themed launch party at the GCAC Jazz Lounge. But in the world of Genoa City, happiness is a temporary state, and Victor Newman is the eternal party pooper. Victor's vicious strike. While Sally is mid-speech, delivering impassioned promises about their allegiance to facts and truth, the room is suddenly plunged into chaos. The grand, successful launch is abruptly derailed by an orchestrated media scandal. The weapon. Victor Newman has instructed Adam Newman to use Newman Media to attack Jabot, targeting Jack, by using Billy and Sally's launch as the explosive backdrop. The strike is so potent that Jack's precautionary measure of taking Jabot offline is somehow turned against him. The news hits everyone's phones at once, a unified, digital shockwave that leaves the entire party reeling. The fallout. Sally, who has fought so hard for legitimacy and to escape her notorious past, watches her triumphant moment disintegrate. Billy, the eternal opportunist, is left scrambling to do damage control. The irony is excruciating. Their company, built on the promise of truth, is inaugurated by a corporate lie designed to cripple a rival. The confrontation, the aftermath will be immediate and brutal. Chelsea Lawson, blindsided by Adam's compliance with his father, is left frustrated and is seen confronting him as their rock-solid partnership begins to show cracks. Meanwhile, Jack, seeing Adam and Chelsea as complicit in the attack on his family's legacy, will hold them accountable, setting the stage for a new, venomous round of Newman-Abbott rivalry that ensnares the younger generation. For Sally, the truth she faces is that no matter how hard she tries, the specter of the Newmans, especially Victor and his influence over Adam, will always be a powerful, destructive force in her life. The loss of her launch is a devastating professional blow that may leave her and Billy scrambling to salvage their company and their fragile relationship. Jack's loss and the counterattack, the architect of his own downfall. The corporate drama of the week centers on Victor Newman finally scoring a major, celebrated victory over the Abbott patriarch, Jack Abbott. After Jack attempted to preemptively neutralize Victor's AI threat by taking Jabot offline, Victor, ever the mustache, found a way to use Jack's precautions against him, leading to a crushing defeat. The triumph and the toast. Victor's revenge plot, executed by Adam through Newman Media, leads to a horrifying discovery for Jack and Diane Jenkins Abbott at the launch party. The news, whatever it may be, a stock manipulation, a reputational attack, or a complete financial hit, leaves Jack exclaiming, "What the hell?" and Diane utterly aghast. Victor's victory lap. Back at the Newman Ranch, Victor celebrates with Adam and Michael Baldwin, raising a glass to Jack being the architect of his own downfall. This isn't just business. It's a personal, deeply humiliating loss for Jack, the man who strives to protect the Abbott legacy above all else. Nikki's dilemma. The victory is not universally celebrated. Nikki Newman learns of her husband's latest coup against Jabot, and her disappointment in his secret-keeping and obsessive feud will undoubtedly lead to a major clash between the power couple. The consequences of Victor's actions will ripple into his own marriage. Jack's retaliation. The Abbotts may be reeling, but they are not broken. No wallowing for the Abbotts, the spoilers state. Jack refuses to accept the defeat and immediately begins planning his counterattack. Diane turns to Michael Baldwin for help, demonstrating the desperate measures the Abbotts are willing to take to salvage their company. The week ends not on defeat, but on Jack's furious, focused resolve to make Victor and Adam pay the price for their cruelty. Jack's loss is not a final defeat, but the beginning of a relentless new chapter in the Newman-Abbott War, one where the stakes have never been higher and the personal animosity is at an all-time peak. Today's shockwave. Genoa City, rocked by Matt Clark's impossible, slick move, has the villain defied death. Again, the fugitive fakes out the FBI, the Newmans, and the viewer in a twist no one saw coming. A 1,500-word deep dive into the scandal that is shaking the foundations of high society. Genoa City, Wisconsin, December 13th, 2025. The air in Genoa City is thick with suspense, betrayal, and the faint, metallic scent of a master manipulator's victory. The world has been watching, riveted, as the saga of the town's most notorious and supposedly deceased villain, Matt Clark, unfolded. Today, that saga reached a crescendo so deafening, so audacious, that it has left law enforcement baffled, the powerful Newman family reeling, and soap opera enthusiasts around the globe in a state of absolute, glorious shock. The stunning conclusion to the month-long hunt for the man who returned from the dead, only to vanish after his identity as the manipulative Mitch Bacall was exposed, is not a capture, but a masterclass in evasion. What Matt Clark pulled off this morning is already being dubbed the slick move of the century, a feat of criminal ingenuity that weaponizes paranoia and leverages the very foundations of high-tech surveillance. Part 1. The Grand Deception. A villain rises from the grave. To understand the magnitude of today's seismic event, one must first recall the impossible premise. Matt Clark was dead. Declared deceased in 2001 after a calculated suicide attempt designed to frame his lifelong rival, Nick Newman, Clark had been a ghost, a traumatic memory that haunted Sharon Newman's, formerly Colin's, past. Then, on Halloween night, 2025, a new character, the charming, enigmatic, and slightly sinister Los Angeles club owner Mitch Bacall, portrayed by daytime Emmy winner Roger Howarth, was revealed to be the very much alive Matt Clark. His return wasn't accidental. It was a cold, calculated move to infiltrate the Newman family circle, specifically targeting Nick and Sharon through their vulnerable son, Noah. The motive was classic Clark, vengeance and obsession. The revelation itself was shocking, but it was just the setup for the true slick move. Clark, having undergone plastic surgery and a complete identity overhaul, was living a life of luxury with his unsuspecting wife, Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun. His plan was to systematically ruin the Newmans. The slick move was not the initial deception, but the calculated escape from the subsequent fallout. Part 2. The Collapse of the Empire and the imminent trap. Clark's house of cards began to crumble when Victor Newman, the family patriarch and one of the most powerful men in the Midwest, decided to personally intervene. Victor, with his unparalleled resources and ruthless efficiency, didn't wait for the police. He unleashed his private network, a global web of spies, lawyers, and financial specialists, to systematically dismantle the Mitch McCall persona. In a dramatic sequence of events last week, Victor exposed Clark's fraudulent financial empire, stripping him of the multi-million-dollar assets that funded his new life. The moment Victor Newman delivered the financial death blow, Matt Clark's mask fractured. Financially ruined and psychologically cornered, the cornered viper made his expected move. He went on the run. The chase was on. Local and federal authorities, with the Newmans' immense private resources augmenting the search, believed they had Clark boxed in. Surveillance footage, phone taps, and financial tracking were all deployed. Every bridge, airport, and private jet terminal in a 500-mile radius was under watch. The trap was set. Part 3. The Slick Move, a disappearance in plain sight. This morning, authorities raided a remote, high-tech safe house in an abandoned industrial park on the outskirts of Genoa City, a location tipped off by a supposedly untraceable burner phone ping. The intel was solid. The perimeter was secure. The Newman family held its breath, ready for the final act of this nightmare. But the safe house was empty. This is where the slick move transitions from a dramatic event to a legendary one. It wasn't just empty. It was a perfectly staged tableau of a man who had never intended to be found there in the first place. The decoy trail, the burner phone, which led the entire task force to the location, was found on a simple mechanical timer programmed to send a low-power, non-directional ping every 6 hours. The phone was a cheap, disposable model purchased with cash from a suburban convenience store over 3 weeks ago. It was a digital breadcrumb, but it was designed to lead the hunter not to the quarry, but to a dead end a week after the quarry left. The surveillance loop. Clark didn't just evade the cameras, he used them. The safe house was equipped with multiple high-definition security cameras, all linked to an external cloud server. Analysts initially rejoiced at the trove of footage, only to discover the last 7 days of video were a meticulously crafted loop, a highly realistic, seamless recreation of his movements, featuring Matt Clark walking, eating, and sleeping, all taken from earlier, non-incriminating footage. He had literally created a digital ghost of himself to keep the police watching a week-old shadow. The Sienna factor. The true brilliance lies in his manipulation of his ex-wife, Sienna Bacall. Sienna, now in Genoa City under the protection of Noah Newman, has been cooperating with the authorities. However, investigators discovered a small, personalized antique silver locket left on a bedside table in the safe house, a locket Sienna had reported lost years ago. This seemingly sentimental gesture had a purpose: to psychologically torment her by suggesting he's close enough to leave gifts, ensuring her paranoia remains at a fever pitch. More chillingly, the locket was a subtle, secondary decoy, a final emotional attachment to the Mitch Bacall identity, left behind to signal the complete death of that persona. Part 4. The Aftermath and the Psychological Warfare. The official police report, released just hours ago, is stunning in its brevity and candor. The suspect is believed to have departed the safe house no less than 72 hours prior to the raid. All evidence at the scene points to a pre-planned misdirection. The suspect is currently believed to be outside the continental United States. Outside the United States. That is the brutal reality of Matt Clark's slick move. While the FBI and Newman Security were chasing a week-old trail in a staged location, Clark used the time difference to flee the country, likely via a private flight to a destination with no extradition treaty, using his few remaining, completely clean offshore assets. The Newman fallout. The emotional toll is immeasurable. Sharon Newman. For Sharon, who has already survived Clark's darkest crimes, this disappearance is a cruel reminder that the man who raped and terrorized her is still out there. A close source to the Newman family stated, Sharon is utterly devastated. She felt the net closing. She felt hope. And now that hope has been snatched away by his pure malice. She knows this isn't over. Nick Newman. Nick's anger is palpable. He feels he let his guard down. The frustration of watching his rival, a man he believed was dead, slip through his fingers twice in a lifetime will undoubtedly fuel a new, personal vendetta that will dominate Genoa City storylines for months to come.